Eric, can you try to jump on camera?
Sure. It does not let me.
Okay. I had this issue with BOA, so let me try to see if I can figure out what I did from last time.
Okay.
So hold on just a moment. I think I think my camera works, but nobody else's does. So I'm going to try to see what's going on.
Hey, Eric, do we have a quorum? Looks like we do, I think.
We do. Shelly was trying to figure out, we can't get our cameras to work. So Shelly was trying to figure
Got
that.
it.
And I know Matt is in the waiting room as well. So he's here too. So
Okay.
Shelly, if you're not having any luck, we can just start. I don't think it'll be the end of the world if we can't see it.
Okay. Yeah, I had this issue with BOA as well, and I was able to get it to work, but because I have to swear people in, I got it figured out. But I'm sorry, guys, I just can't figure out the cameras. They changed our Zoom within the city, so everything has changed.
No worries. It looks
I can
like
make you host, Brooke. I'm sorry, there's no, or I mean, Brett, Eric.
no worries.
But
it looks like Lauren and Matt are in the waiting room.
okay.
Cool.
Trying to get Matt over. Eric, your host.
Okay, cool.
jump off and
Okay. Do you see if Matt was able to come over or not? Because he's still on my attendee list, but
yeah, I keep trying to get him to see if you can get him to go over. I can't get him
Oh,
to
here
go
we
now. I
go.
made you. Okay, thank you.
okay. All right. Thanks, Shelley.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. So I did promote Matt to panelist, so hopefully he'll be hopping over. There he is. Lovely. Okay. So, all right, Cash, whenever you're ready.
Sure. Yeah, thanks. I'll call the meeting to order. It's 6:35 p.m. And Eric, if you want to take attendance, it sounds like we're not going to be able to see each other because of technical difficulties. So this will be an audio only.
Sure. So for attendance, Chair Cash Parker,
Here.
Vice Chair Matt Crabtree, I see me. I'm not hearing you, Matt.
Nor am I.
Okay, we'll give him a second. We'll come back. Melinda Ellswick,
Here.
Lauren Cooper,
Here.
Hannah Miles,
Here.
Ken Chu,
Here.
CJ Cullinan is currently absent. And then it does look like Matt is going to try to restart his computer and see if he can hop on. So go ahead, Matt. I'll keep an eye on the.
Can everyone still hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we'll wait for Matt to see if he can restart, but that'll take us to approval of the minutes from March 15th. Any discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
great. All in favor? Since we can't see each other, Eric, I don't know if you want to call the roll on this, but I assume it's all going to be ayes, but all in favor, say aye.
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 And I actually have to abstain since I wasn't at the meeting.
Okay. So I think that's 4 ayes and 1 abstention, Eric.
Well, I have to abstain as well because I wasn't there last month.
Sorry, is that enough to pass it, Eric, if it's 3-2 or 3 ayes and 2 abstentions?
Or we can wait and ask Matt.
Right.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize I was still on mute. I was saying, yeah, let's. We have 3. We need 4 for approval. So
That's
let's
what I
give
thought.
Matt a second.
That's what I thought. So let's just wait for a second to see if Matt jumps in here.
And it looks like CJ is here as well. So I promoted her to panelist. So hopefully she'll be joining us as well. And for the record, I'll note that CJ Cullinan is present at 6:38.
Oh, no, I'm late.
No, you're good. The cameras aren't working because of a technical issue. CJ, I can't remember. Were you here last month?
No, I think I forgot.
Yeah,
Okay.
she was absent. So Yeah, we're waiting on Matt to get the final yes vote to approve the minutes.
Did you already call him or you want me to?
Oh, no,
Yeah,
he was on and having difficulties with his microphone getting to work. So he was going to restart his computer and try to join again.
Oh, I see. Okay, I'm looking, click open meetings. I'm looking at a launch meeting thing. Is that what everybody else is looking at?
You should just see kind of like a Hollywood squares of
of black screens.
yeah.
I don't. That is so bizarre. Join a meeting. I'm already joined, right? Leave? No. Oh, wait, I see something. There's Eric. View. Gallery.
There you go.
Hey, Lauren, how's the baby?
She's doing good. Than's for asking. She's
Got two of them now, huh?
yes. One is downstairs screaming and the other one's in my arms about to fall asleep. So there's usually always one crying, but
Is there
it's
a
good.
roommate? Are they roommates or do they have their own rooms?
They will be roommates until the little one starts sleeping through the night all the way. They're in separate rooms.
Mm-hmm.
So always shifting.
All right, Matt, does your
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
yes,
can.
wonderful.
Oh, wow. That-
So we need your I vote on the minutes from last month because you were the fourth person that was present at that meeting. So if you've had a chance to look at them and if you could tell us your vote, that would be great.
that would be an I vote.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
The minutes are approved.
Yeah, minutes are approved. With CJ, Lauren, and Hannah abstaining. So, okay, onwards.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Public forum. I don't see anyone from the public. Eric, am I right about that?
you are correct.
Okay. That brings us to new business. There's only one item this month, the Pinyon neighborhood maps. And Eric, I'm not sure who was planning to speak on that. Is that you?
That's me.
Okay, well then I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, perfect. So, if I'm sure everyone should have a copy of the final report or the final historic survey from Pinyon. If not, or if you need me to resend that to you, please let me know and I can do that. What I am going to do real quick is try to share my screen and hopefully alleviate some of all the black screen here. Okay, can everybody see this?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay,
I can see it, yes.
okay, so basically what I wanted to do was, so I've been working with our long-range senior planner, John Vorberl. Oh, perfect, right to the page I wanted. About how we can kind of make a map with these properties that have been identified by Pinyon as being potentially historic or potentially ripe for historic preservation efforts. And as we were going through this, we came across a number of properties that we were kind of like, well, we're not really seeing why they were tagged as being historic aside from the year that they were constructed. So ultimately, and then after a discussion with the city manager's office as well, what the thought is to having these properties identified is great. But what we really want is when we create this map, ideally the end product will look like a dot map for potentially historic properties in Inglewood, and then you could hover over the dot and then it would populate kind of a list of details regarding that particular address. And that would be either, or mainly what makes it historic. I know the Pinyon classifications were pretty generic. You can see on here, one says agriculture, industry, individual, the survey priority is high. They didn't really give any suggestions as to why that was a high priority, but they also have low priority items as well. And so what we want to do, and I'm going to create a homework assignment for you, is basically, we kind of want to go through these property by property and see if there is something that anyone can identify as being a historic characteristic of these identified parcels. And that could be if somebody famous had lived there, if there was somebody unique to Inglewood's history that had lived there or had done any sort of business there. We would like to include that. And also if there are any sort of architectural features or standards that were unique to Inglewood during the time period that makes the property stand out. So basically what I'm going to ask of the HPC, and we can divvy this up. There's a total of 125 properties, I believe, is to basically kind of do a quick research dive and figure out, one, are these properties in fact historic, or were they just a kind of run-of-the-mill thing that was constructed in the 1950s? And so it was tagged as historic. Two, what were the characteristics that make it historic? Was it some sort of, figure, architecture, so on and so forth? And then once we get that data, what we'll do is work with communications to kind of plug this into the neighborhood maps and kind of as a dot layer, and then include that as well with kind of the hover over things that I discussed. Are there any thoughts from any of you or any volunteers of who wants to take or how you want to divide this up? I'm also aware that all the historic properties in Inglewood were not identified, and I'm absolutely okay with, if you know of something that was egregiously missed by the Pinyon windshield survey, feel free to add that if you have the pertinent information.
How many properties is it, Eric? You might have said that.
It was, can you see my Excel file here?
No,
No.
Okay, I think I was just sharing the one screen. So it is, and I will actually send this out to the group. There are 129 properties that were identified in the Pinyon survey.
129.
Yep.
if I may jump in, Cash.
Sure.
Yeah.
Please.
All right, so there is a fantastic resource on the public library site. I'll copy this link here and send this to everybody in the chat. This directs to a very large PDF, and I think CJ knows all about this. This is the Inglewood history book, and CJ worked with the library. Oh, I don't know how many years ago that was, CJ. Was that like 3 years ago, 4 years ago?
Way back when I was young.
Yeah,
No,
well, you were
I
instrumental.
almost want to even say 5 or 6 years ago now.
It could be. So CJ was instrumental in kind of encouraging this to get scanned into a digital document. So anyway, it's the Inglewood history book. And there's a lot of information about historic properties in this book. It is 651 pages.
Wow.
But the properties, how many properties do you think are referred to? Because I can guarantee you, I've never read the book.
I have looked through it. There are a fair bit of properties. A lot of them don't exist anymore. They talk about the old city halls and things along those lines. But this may be a good resource to reference. It is searchable. Everything is OCR'd in here, so you can search the text. Metal gold. It's interesting that Eric had fallen on the page with metal gold. Well, it was, according to the assessor, built in 1968. That, I believe, that lot of land, if my memory serves me correct, has been used by Metal Gold for much before that. And so that was actually why I was bringing this up. I was going to see if Meadow Gold was in here.
I'll also say I used that book extensively when I was putting together the neighborhood histories, and there is a lot of information in there. You can search just by address, by business. It's broken down into a lot of different sections that, depending on what property type you're looking at, could be useful to look through. So yeah, it's a great resource. And there are also city directories at the library. And they're also digitized on ancestry.com if anyone has access to those. And those are great to just look up ownership of a home, or the businesses that were in a particular building. Those are another great resource, but getting to the library is also can be difficult too. So, but it's just something else to look at.
Well, and Lauren, in your history that you'd put together, we were hoping to attach that to the neighborhood maps. And there are several individual historic properties, let's say, referenced in that.
And actually, Lauren just sent me over that document this morning with including your edits, Melinda. So I sent that on to Madeline, and she's going to start working on getting that onto the website.
Cool.
So Eric, what's the timeline you're looking for for us to help you out with that on?
It really depends on you all. I mean, I don't know how much time you have or how you'd like to split up this project. We could see where we are in a month or two. Ideally before, I would say definitely before the end of the year, but I don't think it would take quite that long.
Yeah, I mean, if everyone, excuse me, if everyone wants to jump in, I think it's, divided among 7 people. It's like 18 a piece or something along those lines. I'm not very good at math, I will confess. But I think it's about 18 properties a piece. Or if there's folks who want to do this and less than the whole of this commission wants to split it up. But are there thoughts on that, on how we want to attack this? I don't know, Matt or Lauren or Melinda or anyone who wants to weigh in.
I'm happy to take on and do more, just because I, have familiarity just from my career and from working on the neighborhood histories. So I'm happy to, take on more if there's someone that doesn't have time or capacity to divide it all evenly.
Mm-hmm. Ken, I think you just typed something in the chat. Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I'm also
No
happy to
worries.
jump in and help out. I mean, I think 20 is pretty doable for me.
And I'm happy to jump in and help too.
Yeah, and I'm happy to do the research is the fun part, so I'm always happy to do that.
And this is Hannah. I'm happy to help as well.
Okay.
I would be interested in doing editing or whatever, if people want to send me what they have and I could just edit it.
Sure.
All right.
Sure.
So
I do feel a
And
little
I'm
extended right now.
I'm happy to jump in and take a share too. So I think that's what, 5 of us, 6 of us.
yeah, I was gonna say, so right with the first few that jumped in, we'd have, if we give about 20 apiece between Lauren, Ken, Matt, Melinda, and Hannah, that would have us pretty much covered. I can split it down into more like a 15 if we want to kind of pass out a little bit more of cash.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it too. I think, Eric, maybe if it's possible, what would be helpful is if you could, I don't remember if they're numbered or exactly how it's set up in the Pinyon survey, but if you could maybe make an assignment dividing those up amongst the 6 of us, and then you send an email saying, Cash, these are your X number to look at. And also the specific questions that you mentioned. I think there were 2 specific questions that you wanted a response to on each property. If you could send that, and then we can go from there. Does that sound like a plan?
I think
Yeah.
the first question is it historically relevant? Number
Right.
one. Number 2, does it have a historic person associated with it or an historic event? Or historic architecture?
Yep.
It seems like those were the.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, what if because we had put together the landmark nomination and it had like 4 or 5 different criteria for significance,
Oh,
and that's spelled out in the instructions too.
Oh,
Um,
yeah,
We could redistribute that to everyone and use that as the
Sure.
basis.
that's a
wow,
good idea.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's
Laura.
great. So Eric, do you mind doing that little piece of legwork of dividing it up and putting in writing exactly what you want us to find out or try to find out?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I've got an Excel spreadsheet with all of the kind of raw data in it. And basically after tonight's discussion, what I was planning on doing is breaking it down into kind of bite-sized pieces, if you will, and then just kind of distributing out amongst you the 6. And then Lauren, that was a great idea to include the landmark application criteria. So I'll include that as
Would you
well.
do it based on geography so that people are kind of concentrated in one area? Or is that too hard?
That, let's see.
Or even just at least zip code? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I can see, and I'll talk with John Vorberl, our long range planner, who did some of the GIS legwork on this to see if he could provide me with his data if he had them split up into neighborhoods. They wouldn't
Or just-
probably be necessarily neighborhoods like your historic neighborhood map, but they would
Right.
be
Yeah.
larger than that.
I
But
mean,
more,
No,
I
I
don't-
was just thinking if the dots pop up, 129 dots, Ken's area could be here and Lauren's area could be there, whatever.
yeah. And I can mess
Because that
around with
type
that
of
and
thing
see
would
what
be
seems
cool.
more feasible in terms of, having a group here and a group.
Yeah, but I also don't, if it's too much work to do that, Eric, I'm fine with you just going down the Pinyon list and breaking it up, because it's, it might be valuable too to have different people looking at different areas.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Can I ask a question about whether or not people know much about, I think there is a Englewood Historic Society or something like that. Is that correct? Does that sound familiar?
Yeah. Matt is a member of that.
Yes, I am. I'm the president of it. Yes. So
Okay,
we're-
well, there you go.
we're available to help too. Doug Cohn, one of our board members, wrote a history book himself. And he's a good resource. So if there's something that's stumping you, or I'm trying to think on how we can share that responsibility with the historic Englewood. I think we could be available to help if there were questions like specific. Does that make sense? You think that's a good way to do this? Cash, how do you?
Yeah, sure. I just want
Yeah.
to make sure that, we were leveraging, all the, any resources we could.
Sure. Doug is our resident historian, and he's lived in Englewood his entire life, and he has a wealth of information. He would be a good resource for all this. I know a little bit, but I don't know nearly as much as he does. Ida May is also a really good resource. Her and her family is actually in the Englewood history book. Anyway, yeah, so Ida May is a good resource. And I think, there's a bunch of other people on our board that we could probably tap if there was questions specific. If something looks like it should be historic, but you can't find anything, we could probably go from there. Of course, situations, for instance, with the Metagold, I mean, a lot of people would look at that and not realize the history on that lot of land. So, yeah, I don't know. I think we can all kind of chip in as necessary, and let me know if you have any questions for the Historic Society.
And I'll sit
Sure.
down over the next couple days and just kind of look at the data and see if there's any kind of way to break it up. But either way, probably by Friday or early next week, I'll send out a list to everybody and just kind of have you tagged with your properties, and then include the landmark criteria as well.
Sure.
And then
Yeah.
what should we do with it when we've completed our task? Send it to CJ?
Yeah, do you want to CJ, do you want to
Sure.
be the compiler?
Okay,
Sure. And then we can just touch base on next month's meeting and see how everybody's doing. If you get through like 5-6 properties, and then, that'll kind of give us a kind of a time frame.
Mhm.
We can expect to send this over to communications for further action.
Cool.
it
Great.
would be nice too, more than once, communications has done something without asking for a review of a draft or anything. Is there any chance we can make sure that's understood?
Wait, say that one more time?
Yeah, I didn't follow that question.
The idea that they sometimes publish things or move things along without including people on the final draft?
Oh yeah, we would make sure that everyone is in. Basically, what my idea is like, once this is like beta ready, is to have someone from communications come in, be it Chris or Madeline, and just kind of showcase what everything is going to look like before it goes live. That's
Cool.
ideally my vision.
Thank you.
Great. That sounds good. Thanks, Eric, for doing the legwork on your end, and we'll take it from there and see how it goes and check back in next month on it.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. I want to jump in here, Wes. I think and
Sure.
if I'm wrong, this is I believe this is kind of a continuation of obviously the Pinyon work, but this was requested by City Manager Lewis as to be able to further quantify the information from the survey. Is that where this came from?
Yep.
Good, cool. I'm excited. Yeah, I know we talked about it. I talked with the city manager shortly after the presentation with Pinyon, and I know he had discussed this, so I'm happy to see that we're moving forward.
Cool. But yeah, we ran some sample maps by them, and we were just really thinking like, okay, and that's kind of where what led us to our chain of thinking, like, is this really historic? And two, what other information can we add to these properties that are in fact historic that would make it a more useful tool for everybody?
Great.
All right.
That's it for me.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Eric.
No problem.
That moves us forward to old business. There's not any this month. There's a couple of items that we'll maybe discuss in Commissioner's Choice, just because there weren't folks weren't here last month. Eric, do you have anything else for Staff's Choice before we jump to Commissioner's Choice?
No, my only thing was that I let you know already that Lauren had provided the draft of the neighborhood histories that I had forwarded on to communications. So hopefully we'll see some of that incorporated soon. And that was really all I had. I don't know, Brian, did you have anything?
No, I don't have anything.
Ken, I see you've got a hand up.
Yeah, Cash, so I'm sorry, regarding old business, wasn't there some follow-up to conversations we were having around the proposals and the changes in zoning? And
Yeah, and I want to get to that and have Matt talk about that in Commissioner's Choice, because it's my oversight that didn't end up on old business, but I want to call on Matt to talk about that once we get to Commissioner's Choice, just to keep with what's on the published agenda. If Matt, you don't mind doing it in that venue in addition to whatever else you might have for Commissioner's Choice.
That sounds good.
But yeah, before we get there, I will bring this up on Commissioner's Choice for myself, which is because, again, I don't want to be too repetitive, but some folks weren't here, which is just an update on what happened not last month, but the month prior with the code rewrite for Title 16 and the Historic Preservation Commission. So the good news is the council seems poised to pass the ordinance as we've rewritten it. The only concern, and Brian and Eric and I were present, and as were Matt and Melinda at the city council meeting, but Eric and Brian and I fielded some questions from the council, which were almost exclusively around the number of property owners or percentage of property owners that are required or going to be required to designate a historic district. And the consensus of council was that that needs to be raised to 75%. And, I mentioned to council that that had been a matter of some debate in this commission as to what that percentage should be. But the good news is there was really not any other questioning of the ordinance. And so I think it remains on track for passage as part of the overall Code Next project was my take on it. So, is that an accurate summary? Does anyone else want to weigh in on where that stood after the council session back in February?
It sounds accurate to me.
Great. So it's been a long road, but I think we're moving toward passage of that ordinance, which will be good. Then Matt, I'll just look to you next as vice chair, and also that particular item that I wanted to discuss or wanted you to discuss and bring up. And if you could just maybe cover a little bit in summary fashion what we discussed last month with zoning changes and potential impacts on historic preservation, and go from there, and whatever else you have for commissioner's choice, of course, but I did want to call on you for that item.
Perfect. Yeah. Wow. A lot has changed in the last month. In fact, I look at this and I go, that seems like a very long month. So quick update on where the rezoning efforts or the redefinition of zoning efforts that was happening as part of Code Next, which could affect historic preservation by further encouraging more development in our community and the development of different types in areas that, well, this was the initial concern for those that weren't part of the earlier conversations, is that areas like Arapahoe Acres are zoned as R1 and somewhat protected. And with the efforts that were previously being followed on city council, that could have opened up areas like Arapahoe Acres and other R1 zoned areas in the city to high density residential, which that was once thought not to be necessarily possible. And further increasing the volume of development in our community, thus further changing the historic character and or losing more historic homes and homes in general and as single family homes in Inglewood. So that was the initial concern. It felt like there was definitely a connection there with historic preservation. Now, the conversation went in all sorts of directions. The governor apparently proposed a bill that was very close to what Inglewood City Council was looking at, except it was even broader. And that is, I believe, Senate Bill 213, 23-213, I believe is what it is.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, did I get that right?
Correct.
Wow. Senate Bill 213, which would override municipalities in anything that they would do ahead of this, and would further, I don't want to go into too much detail. There's a lot of stuff in that, and I don't want to get it wrong by any means, or mischaracterize it, or not tell you about the right stuff in it. But some of the main concerns were that the state would be able to override zoning authority in municipalities, and it could potentially, the state initiative could potentially override any efforts that the Inglewood City Council was, and other cities also, but specifically the Inglewood City Council, the work that they've been doing on this. And thus, for that reason, and probably a few other reasons, they have chosen to table the R1 discussion as part of Code Next. And I don't know if that's an accurate paraphrase, Eric, if you want to, is that fairly accurate on how I presented that?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds pretty straightforward. It should be noted that aside from that, council voted unanimously on Monday evening to drop any multifamily changes to the R1 district in the Code Next rewrite.
Right. And yeah, exactly. They did vote on that on Monday night. So they're dropping that from the discussions right now. Although I took that more as being tabled, not necessarily a absolute end of the line. Am I wrong on that?
So I can chime in. What they talked about, I don't know that there was a vote. I know it was a conversation towards the end, I think during council members' choice about right now removing the 2 to 4 unit and R1 discussion completely from Code Next and moving forward with the rest of the code. What I believe some of the council members brought up was maybe this housing concern or issue in the community needs to be brought up through a task force.
That's
So
right.
there was a conversation of a task force, our consultants and ourselves, along with the UDC steering committee and city council, have a work session scheduled for May 8th, in which we were expected to bring back more housing discussion. But now with this new change, we're kind of we're at a point where we're not sure which direction they want to go with it. So we're waiting until May 8th to basically to determine which direction they want us to go. So right now it's kind of we're wait and see.
Wait and see, kind of limbo, it sounds like.
Yeah.
But there has been a lot of community attention on this, to say it lightly.
Freak out.
I would say this is, in all of the time that I've been attending city council meetings, that is the most people I have ever seen regularly attending city council meetings. I mean, wow. So anyway, but that's I think that's kind of where it stands right now. And Cash, I don't know if you've been following any of it, but do you have anything else to add that I may have missed?
No, I have bbeen tracking it, not as closely as you, but yeah, that is a very accurate summary, and thank you for providing it. And unless there's further discussion or questions of Matt or Brian or Eric on that point, Matt, do you have anything else for Commissioner's Choice?
Well, I do actually, yes.
Great.
We have the Historic Englewood, the Historic Society has a lecture coming up on April 25th. We are inviting a gentleman that did a presentation on tiki, which there were apparently a lot of tiki bars in the Denver area back in the 50s and 60s. It was a very popular thing. So Mr. Mike Skinner will talk about the history of tiki bars around Denver and take a look back at the heyday of the mid-century Polynesian pop culture and how it influenced the fantasies of the South Seas. So that is on April 25th. There'll be 2 presentations, one at 2:30 p.m. at the Englewood Public Library, the other one at 6:30 p.m. new location, Table Public House at 2190 South Platte River Drive.
Someone said that used to be the VFW.
That is correct. It used to be VFW.
Oh, wow.
We're having a little trouble finding places, and fair point. That's actually in Denver, not far into Denver, just by a couple blocks down off of Evans there, I guess, Platte River. But we're having a little bit of trouble right now at this point with finding a reliable location in Englewood, but we plan to continue that search. Well, someday soon we'll probably move our lectures back to a local business here in Englewood. But anyway, it's a neat place though. Table Public House, a lot of fun.
Matt,
Will there
are
be,
you
uh,
allowed to
Point out
talk?
that it's actually in Denver, but it's actually a really nice place, so.
Yeah, it is.
I was just gonna ask whether there will be Mai Tais or similar tiki beverages served at that outing.
Well, I'm sure that is an option. It's not necessarily planned, but I'm sure it'll be an option. So
It should be planned. That'd be great.
that would actually. I don't know if anybody thought about that. Okay. Let's see, what else do I have? I think that's about it for now. We've got some other news of the Historic Society that's evolving, but once we're a little bit more organized with that, I'll
Even if it's not organized, Matt, the museum idea, no?
yeah, all right. I'll talk a little bit about the museum. We're excited that we're actually working on. We're in the very early stages here, but we are working on a Inglewood History Museum that will be located on the second floor of City Hall, in the former MOA space, and we'll have revolving exhibits there, and a lot of great history. So we're still kind of working out the details and everything, getting it all finalized. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at right now.
Because it is a shared space, correct?
It is a shared space. We're sharing the space with Inglewood Arts, which facilitates the Hampton Hall. We're also sharing some of the space with city employees too. So, it's the main corridor area as you walk in off of the second floor there, kind of the atrium area in the middle of the second floor. That main corridor will be our museum.
And if, as a member of Historic Inglewood, please, I feel bad that Ken didn't know about it. The idea that you can go online and become a member. What is it for an individual? Is it like 45 or something?
Yeah, no, it's individuals 25 and the
25.
family is $40. Historic Inglewood is a 501c3 nonprofit. There are occasional grants that are received, and we appreciate those that we do receive from the city and other businesses. But I would say that well over 90% of our operating budget comes from individual members.
Great. Well, thank you, Matt. Anything else that cover your commissioner's choice?
Well, I think that's it. I feel like I'm got a lot to talk about here, but I think that's about it.
Okay, great. Well, I'm just going to go in order around the screen as it appears for me. Ken, did you have anything for commissioner's choice?
Yeah, I actually do want to go back to that whole zoning thing, and not about the zoning itself, but I think somebody was going to do some research on kind of what our purview would be as a commission, in terms of like whether it would be something for us to do to issue a statement, or when situations like this kind of come up. Do you remember that conversation at all? Does anyone remember that conversation?
I do remember that conversation, that, whether we can actually say anything as a commission or not, to take a position on things like that. And I don't remember who was going to look into that. It sounds like, at least as regards that zoning topic, it's moot since that's been tabled or set aside from the Code Next project. But I can't remember did we have Victoria or someone from the city attorney's office at the meeting last time? Eric, do you recall?
Yes, it was me.
Yeah, it was Sergio.
Oh, sorry. I apologize. I just saw a last name there. I don't know if you had a chance to look into that or not.
I did look into it. I agree with you that at this point it's kind of moot given what the state is moving forward with. But essentially this commission is its task is to promote and advise city council on historic preservation. With that task in mind, options would essentially be to have the city council liaison know and see if they'd like to bring it up. So present it to the city council liaison to see what they'd like to do with it. Always attend the public portions of the meetings, which it seems like a lot of the members have been. maybe during the public portions of the meetings, relay a unified statement that everyone can agree on.
So
And
the
this-
answer is yes, we can write a letter. And yes, we can present it. Is
Okay, yeah,
that
so.
right? Am I right,
Yeah,
sir?
so it's just to advise city council, you know, as we all know, ultimately the final decision's on city council to make the decisions. But would essentially be to let them know what the commission thinks.
Right. I think, tell me if you think I'm wrong about this. I would imagine, in the vein of like a letter or whatever statement we might want to make, we can pass resolutions, right, in this commission that would say this is the commission's position on X or Y. Is that a fair statement, Sergio?
I mean, I guess I don't like the word resolution, I guess.
Okay.
So yeah, I agree with you that the commission can present a unified statement,
Mhm.
but not necessarily something I would call a resolution.
Yeah, resolution is resolving something and it's not obviously not resolved. But
Well,
it's
we
good
can,
for us to know because certain things may pop up.
well, I think the definite, and Cash, correct me if I'm wrong here, because I'm not a lawyer, I'm an engineer. But we stand resolute in a position. Is that the technical definition of a resolution? Is that-
Right. I think that's essentially right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in any event, it doesn't really matter what we call it. But if we want to present a statement or something like that, we can and have the ability to do that. But it's obviously advisory, or we can work through our city council liaison and handle it that way. It sounds like too. So, Ken, thank you for raising that point. Does that answer your question?
Oh yeah, totally. It's just useful to know kind of the extent of our purview and responsibilities, right? Just for
Mhm.
future. I mean, if not related to this topic, just related to future things that may or may not come up.
Yeah. Well, and
Um,
hopefully once the code rewrite passes, we'll actually have some additional responsibility for designating landmarks soon enough. But I digress. Sorry, Ken, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, that's totally fine. The other thing I wanted to just ask is, Melinda forwarded me the Pinyon study. So thank you, Melinda, for doing that. Am I right in what I'm reading in that, that there were recommendations for some follow-up surveys to be completed? Is that correct?
Yes,
And are any of those moving forward at all?
no,
And is there a reason for that?
money.
Oh, got it.
Yeah,
So,
I think.
I guess that's my follow-up question, is just for this commission, like where do we sit on that as a commission? Like, are those surveys things that we have a responsibility for advocating for, or fundraising for, or any of those things? I mean, is that within our purview or within our responsibility?
Well, what I'll say about that, and others can weigh in with their thoughts as well, is, I mean, CJ hit the nail on the head. The grant covered just the Pinyon survey, and I think Lauren and others are much more familiar with those surveys than I am. But I think it's typical that they recommend follow-up work in the nature of other surveys, and ultimately it's up to council, I guess, as most things are, as to whether council wants to allocate budget to doing those things, if they're worthy or appropriate. And I suppose we can advocate for it, depending on views of the folks on this commission, whether we think that those follow-up items, and I can't remember specifically what they are for this Pinyon survey, whether we think they're appropriate follow-up items or not. We can certainly have some further discussion on that and go from there. But I welcome anyone else's thoughts. And Eric, I know you're obviously intimately familiar with the Pinyon survey and the grant that got it done in the first place and all that. So Eric, or anyone else who wants to weigh in, by all means.
Well, I was thinking, maybe
Um,
Lauren, could you, just to tell us the
Oh.
steps?
I mean, I don't know the exact steps, but there are other grants that we can apply for.
Mhm.
That they would be, the one that we got initially was a non-competitive grant. And for these next steps that we would need to actually do a survey and which would hopefully lead to a National Register nomination. There are competitive grants we could apply for those. And we would also have to provide matching funds for those. I don't know what that is off the top of my head, but the grant money itself would certainly go a long way towards funding that survey. So that, that's one possible source that we could move forward with. Because I
guess
agree,
that-
I think if we have that information, we should try any means possible to move forward with it and to kind of follow up on those recommendations.
Because there's something going on with Historic Denver where they have people going right now through a neighborhood and they only do 2 or 3 neighborhoods a year. And they're going building by building. Is that a step that we would do too?
That is something, I think that's like a volunteer initiative that's doing that. I mean, they're running it, but I think it's all volunteer based. It's actually doing it. I don't know for sure.
Yeah, no, it is.
But I think what we would want to do is like look at not do building by building just throughout the city. Because the purpose of the Pinyon plan was to kind of guide us and like these, to give us the areas we should concentrate on versus just doing the whole city.
I see. But the next step would be to do what we're doing with the division of these sites and delineating what's truly historic.
Yeah, or we could just like, I mean, that'll certainly go a long way, what we're gonna be doing, but also like looking at areas like downtown that, we kind of know that that's historic and seeing what we could just do there too.
Mhm. Okay.
I also say with the surveys, I think a lot of the surveys are intended, they're kind of addictive. They give you a little bit of information and then they go, "Well, you have more of it." But that's how it works. But to that point though, it is always great to get more information. And
Wow.
since our existence, I think there hasn't been a whole lot of attention on surveying the historic properties in Inglewood prior to us.
Right. I mean, to your point, Matt, and I'm not saying these aren't worthwhile recommendations. I'm sure the folks that do these surveys always recommend more surveys in hopes that you'll hire them to do more surveys, right?
Well, there's layers, to
Sure.
where you really concentrate your endeavor in saving this or whatever. Or designating that, or it's almost like we came up with our program, which I think is one of the steps usually after a survey, So we jumped the gun.
I don't know. I think the Pinyon, I don't think we jumped the gun necessarily. The Pinyon survey drew a lot of attention. The presentation to city council was incredibly beneficial, just simply from a PR standpoint.
Right.
So I think we just need to keep the attention going. If we can get more grant money, yeah, I mean, I don't know how are we gonna do it, but
And Lauren, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there a discussion about like in order to open us up for more grant opportunities, it might be worth looking into becoming a certified local government again?
Yes, if we become a CLG, we're just eligible for different funds specifically for surveys. Yeah.
Okay.
what about grants in the meantime, though? I mean, are there other opportunities that might exist? Just literally, I don't know. Where did you find this one, Eric? I can't remember. I know you talked about it, but
This is through the one we got was through the State Historical Fund. And they do, they have multiple grant rounds every year. And that's, and a lot of times too, at least in the past, I know they once they've given a grant to a specific organization or project, they'll often give more grants just to kind of see a project through to the end. So this one might set us up for future ones, or it might not, but that's certainly where we could look again, along with the CLG.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks everyone for all of that. That's really helpful. I mean, I only bring it up just because I noticed those recommendations in that report, and they do rate those recommendations, high, medium, and low. And so, if this committee were interested in kind of looking at some of those recommendations that are rated high, and we'd be interested in exploring maybe applying for grants or anything like that, I'd be happy to be a part of that effort. So that's it for me. Thanks, Cash.
Yay, Ken.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. Good points. Appreciate it. Melinda, you're next on my screen. Do you have anything for Commissioner's Choice?
I don't have anything much. I have been wondering, has anyone heard anything or any progress with the city of Littleton or the city ditch
Yeah. that would be a
issue?
question. Yeah.
I can speak to that a little bit. I've been keeping in touch with Larry Borger. For the benefit of the record here and everybody on the call, Larry Borger is a former city attorney in the city of Littleton. He has also kind of championed the effort to preserve the remaining sections of the city ditch, and specifically focused on the areas that go within Littleton. However, also concerned about the areas that go within Englewood. As part of the Flow It Forward program, or the work that the water treatment folks are doing here in Englewood, they're looking at piping the city ditch, as we do receive a percentage of our municipal water supply through the ditch, which is fascinating because the ditch is literally the oldest thing man-made in this area, in the Denver metro area. It's really the reason why Denver became the city that it did, and why Englewood exists the way it does, the reason why Littleton exists the way it does. So the water supply that goes through that has been going through that for I'm trying to remember the date off the top of my head, but it's at least it's coming up on 140 years, I think, that water supply has possibly even prior to that. Can't remember. CJ, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on when the city ditch was
I
first.
know, I'm tell you the truth, I'm looking up. I've taken a couple of walking tours and I don't remember any of it.
I want to make sure, considering we're the Historic Preservation Commission, that I'm giving you the right information here.
Well, what's a bummer is the first thing that comes up on city ditch is Denver, not Littleton. So
Yeah. First one I can talk about that. Anyway.
Yeah. So the map basically
1860
has it from 285 south.
1865. I'm sorry. It was constructed in 1865.
Good job. Thank you.
So
There's
100.
even one of those moments in history videos about the city ditch.
There is absolutely there is. So for 158 years, water has been flowing through that ditch, and Englewood purchased the rights to the lot of the water supply and the actual land. A lot that literally goes the entire stretch from Englewood, not the Denver portion, but the Englewood and Littleton, and then all the way on up to Cherry Creek Reservoir. Chatfield.
26 miles, it says.
Chatfield Reservoir, not Cherry Creek. Chatfield Reservoir, yeah. So anyway, Englewood owns all the land and a right of way on each side of that, and but considering we receive a percentage of our municipal water supply through that 160-year-old ditch, there's a lot of problems with the water quality as associated with that. So the Peter Van Rye with the part of the Public Works Water in the city, they're looking at piping it to improve the water quality in Englewood, which I'm sure if you're an Englewood resident, you've turned on your faucet anytime within the last 20 years. Water in Englewood ain't great. So I understand why they're doing it, but obviously Larry and Historic Inglewood. So Larry's with Historic Littleton, and you know, the Historic Inglewood organization. We've been working with the city on a way to try to preserve as much of it as possible, while not impeding the project.
And so where is it then?
Not much.
Because I asked the county when we had a town hall on the water and stuff, and they said, oh, we're working with Historic Inglewood and, you know, and the commission and stuff. And I'm like, no, you're not.
Well, we are actually, we have met with a county commissioner, and but we just haven't seen a whole lot of attention on it yet. There was discussion that there may be parks money available to help with some of the preservation efforts associated. I
Oh,
believe
cool.
like the GoCo stuff, which is the lottery, you know, tax stuff, might be available to help with that. It's just it hasn't, nothing's come about of it yet, and it's a difficult, it's an easy argument if you're really into history. It's a difficult argument because most people look at it and they go, it's a ditch.
Mhm.
So you know, I maintain that there's a lot of opportunities, and you know, Larry's brought up a lot of really great ideas with it too, that it actually may not be the best idea for Inglewood. He actually, Larry brought in information that he had found through an engineer on this that looked at it, and said, you know, while it's easy to follow the path because Inglewood already owns the land there, there are probably options to make the path a lot straighter, because obviously the ditch follows elevation because it's a natural gravity fed you know, flow. If they're pressurizing it through a pipe, they don't necessarily have to worry about the gravity, you know, or the flow drop in the flow. So anyway, there's a lot of ideas that have been proposed thus far to maybe a more efficient route for the piping that doesn't have to go through the old ditch, and they could actually take a different path to get the same water supply. A lot of things going around, just nothing really is stuck yet.
Thank you, Ben.
Yeah, thank you. Gonna take somebody to grow a spine and make a decision someday.
I'm afraid that sooner than later, the city's going to move forward with the project, no matter what. There's a rather aggressive timeline associated with the piping of this, so likely, you know, I don't know for sure, and I can't remember exactly the dates, and I don't want to give the wrong dates, but there is it's a very aggressive timeline. It's something that's going to happen in the next couple of years.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Matt. Hannah, did you have anything for Commissioner's Choice?
I do not.
Lauren, anything for Commissioner's Choice?
Nothing here.
Thank you. CJ, anything for Commissioner's Choice?
Yeah, so the historic, I'm a member of the Historic Denver. They just are so organized. It's amazing. And they send out a newspaper that talks about buildings or things that were saved or that are in danger or that they've lost. And Saving Places in Colorado does that too. And I was thinking, might be a little gutsy, but I was thinking it might be a cool project for us to just keep a vision of being able to do that, to say, these are things that we want to save. And because there was a couple things I think Doug's told us about that, you know, was the houses are gone now. And yet they were historically significant, and, you know, just somehow publish that information, you know, making sure that people that are interested are able to access, not just from the map, because the map would point out things that exist now, I guess, unless they cover and can see what was there. But in general, that idea of what are we looking at trying to save? Is that a commission work or is that the society work? Is there a delineation of effort there?
I'll jump in. I think it could be either or both organizations. Keep in mind that the Historic Preservation Commission had been, we've been considering, our own sort of web page of sorts through the city website. That'd be kind of nice to revisit that at a future meeting. I'm not sure. I'm trying to remember what the outcome of that was, but actually having an informational site on the city page from the commission would be good. Yeah, from our standpoint, sorry, I am tired. It's a long week. But anyway, yeah, so I think an informational site, maybe on the city webpage, would be something that we could continue to pursue. What do you think, Cash?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I guess I'd look to Eric to guide us in that regard. I'm sure that would run through communications.
Yeah, I believe so.
But I don't see us doing it right now, but as we do, start delineating things, it'd be cool to just bring it up. I have nothing more, CJ.
Thanks, CJ. With that, I think that brings us to the end of the agenda. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded to adjourn at 7:40 p.m.
All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a
Thank
good
you,
time.
everyone.
Have a
Thank
good
you,
night.
Eric, for your work.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, thanks, Eric.
Yeah.
Thanks,
It's
everybody.
everyone.
me early next week, I'm thinking.
Good night.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. See everybody next month. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you, Mike.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Have a good night.